Welcome to Switched On, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Julien, Head of Business and Development at ACES Africa, and I'm super excited today for our launch of our first interview of the series of podcasts that we're going to be holding. We're going to be talking about the rapidly evolving energy space in South Africa, and specifically the solar PV space. In this series, we'll talk to actors of the market, EPCs, IPPs, distributors, manufacturers, insurers, and other leaders of the space to better understand how to navigate this complex industry. Today, we're hosting Charl Gous, founder and CEO of ACES Africa. Hello, Charl, and thank you for having us in your office.
Yeah, thank you.
And giving us some of your time for us to be able to better understand the solar PV industry. But first of all, please present ACES Africa, where you guys are coming from, what you've done before, and how you came where you are today.
Yeah, thank you, Julien. It's great being here, and thanks for the time. ACES Africa is a fully fledged EPCM, and specifically in the sector, we came from a background of doing electrical engineering for many years, and in 2015 decided we wanted to get into the renewable space. We had a client approach us and said, "Can you do a solar PV project for us?" And we thought, well, with the experience we had in the electrical, it wasn't much of a challenge. So we jumped on the roof, literally. Me and the management team got on the roof, rolled up our sleeves, did the first project to see how it is, how challenging it would be. And I think that is important, that one can get that feel and know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So we did the first project in 2015, and from there it was just the rest is history. It took off. We were at the right time in the right space, and I think that this energy sector, as we all know, has just taken off. We grew rapidly into a company that does fully fledged large projects from small to large, and enjoying it. A lovely space to be, and we're truly blessed.
Definitely the right space to be in. Thank you for that, Charl. I'd like to go and develop a little bit more on that, on ACES Africa. So ACES Africa, as you say, is a full EPCM. That means engineering, procurement, construction, and maintenance.
Correct.
So you've developed ACES Africa as an EPC, so the construction side of things, design and construction. And then there's ACES Asset Management to look after the plants that you've built for your clients, as well as ACES Academy to train the next generation of solar PV installer and specialists. Please tell us more about why you've structured the company like this and what kind of added value that brings to your clients.
So, Julien, from where we started, we originally started out actually more on the construction side. So we were doing purely solar construction of sites for other EPCs. And I think that put us in a good state to understand the construction challenges. Later on, we developed into a full EPC, added the engineering and procurement to our bag of tricks. And we've then realized that there's a massive demand in the market for maintenance. Many people, I think, at the time thought you build a solar system, it's there for 25 years, you never have to touch it, and it just produces energy, other than wash a panel every now and again. I think the time taught people, especially the IPPs that came into the market,
Independent power producers.
The independent power producers realized that these are things that you actually need to manage and make sure that you're always producing energy at the max. So with that in mind, and with our own projects, we started a asset management company. And in there, we do service level agreements, we do maintenance agreements with our clients, and we take on portfolios of projects to manage and make sure that they're up and running.
Okay. And that is in Cape Town, but you do conduct maintenance all over because we are based in
Correct.
Cape Town, but you conduct maintenance all over the country. Is that correct?
Correct. So the head office is in Somerset West in Cape Town, or outside Cape Town. And we also have offices in Pretoria, a very strong team of construction guys in Pretoria. But the management of the O&M side is countrywide. On the construction side, we've done projects all over Africa. So we've built projects in Kenya, in Nigeria, Angola, Rwanda. So we work all over Africa.
That's impressive.
Within South Africa, we've built projects anywhere in South Africa, every little corner of the country. So yes, we work everywhere, and the same goes for the maintenance. You have to be able to do your maintenance everywhere, and we do.
Okay.
Your question about the academy. So what we've also realized is that we as a company struggle tremendously to find really skilled people that know what they're doing in this game. So what we traditionally would have done is we would have just trained our own teams, brought people in and trained them from scratch. But we soon realized that there's also a massive need in the market for people out there. Other companies are looking for skilled people to be able to install at a very high level. And I can maybe just say there that, for us at ACES, the one thing that we believe distinguishes us from everybody else and that we've really focused on is quality. Is what we build it well, and we build it with the intention to last longer than 25 years. And that, I think, has put us in a very good position where we're not in this for the short run. We're not in here for a quick buck. We want to build a company and build systems that last a very long time. So with the focus on quality, we also found that there are not that many people out there that understand that and that know how to do it properly. So we started an academy, currently based in Kuils River. And the idea there is that we want to bring people literally off the street that can come in. When they walk in, know absolutely nothing about solar, really know nothing about how to go about it. But by the time they leave, they're not going to be the engineer sitting in the office designing systems, but they will be helpful on a site. You can have them go onto a site. They will know how to install solar panels, or they will know how to do the mechanical structure or the electrical wiring. So the idea is through that we can actually educate people and create jobs, and it's not only for us, for our own teams and for our own people, but for the industry as a general. And that is proving to be very good, very challenging. I think you've been very involved with that, you and your wife. And I think that you guys will also know, it hasn't been a walk in the park. But I really do believe it's something that will be an amazing addition to our company and to the industry as a whole.
Thank you for that, Charl. Well, I think we're going to touch on a couple points that you mentioned just now, because I think it's one of the things that are quite impressive with ACES Africa is that you guys are still a family-owned business, 100%. You and your two boys have started the company from the ground up. And today, I believe we just above 100 employees in a short amount of time. What do you attribute this success to?
Yeah, Julien, I think that, by the grace of God, we are where we are. I think it hasn't been an easy road. I think being a family-owned business and not having large external shareholders that can bring a lot of money to the table, I think that we know that in this game, construction of solar sites is not a 100,000 or 200,000 rand industry.
It does require cash flow. Yeah.
It requires a massive amount of money, and that has proven quite challenging for us. But we've managed to get through, and I think that what has enabled us to do this to date has really just been a steady growth. It's like take it step by step, do the next project, do it well. And not try and do everything all at once. Grow the company, grow it with a solid foundation, and never walk away from a challenge. We've had projects that have been very difficult. There's been projects that you have to go back and redo, but you do it, even if you lose money, because you're only as good as your last project. So for us, that's very important, is to create that integrity
Yep.
in the market. I think that we'll see in the future, if we remain a family-owned business, I think the size of the projects that we're tackling at the moment might demand that we look at differently, because the projects are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But thus far, so far, so good, they would say.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, we'd love to hear as well your thoughts on the evolution of the market. So as you said, you started almost a decade ago, or a decade ago, actually. So you've seen the space evolve from, I mean, you mentioned yourself, the first installations that you did, you jumped on the roof yourself. The panels were different, the inverters were different, the racking system was different. And up to now, and now we're seeing the appearance of potentially the batteries as well. Tell us more about the evolution of the market, and where do you think it will come in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen in the market is that you had the original legislation that limited you to a megawatt.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to build bigger than a megawatt. And obviously that was a very limiting factor for many clients. Installations were also 99% with just a grid-tied solar system, where you would have either curtailment, non-feed into the grid, or you would feed into the grid, depending on the client and what type of system they wanted. But the systems were typically relatively small. And I say relatively small, obviously all below a megawatt, but we were doing systems of 20 kilowatt and 30 kilowatt, many of them. And then when we saw the legislation change with the onset of the energy crisis that we have in the country, and we got to be able to build systems over a megawatt, that has forced the industry to change. And you can't work with people that don't know what they're doing. You can't have the guy working from his garage building a 5 megawatt ground mount with 11 kV tie-in. It just doesn't work that way. So we've definitely seen the market growing in the size of projects. But the other thing that we've seen is that also the battery systems are becoming the norm, where a few years ago you would very, very seldom install a battery with solar, purely due to cost. It was just way too expensive to install large batteries. The flavor of the month was generators to counter load shedding. Where we are today, people can't run generators for long hours. They're just way too costly. The cost of diesel is too expensive. And we see more and more people actually saying, well, we need to replace our generator with a proper battery system. So we're seeing very large battery systems. We as ACES are doing currently an 11 megawatt hour battery installation for a shopping mall. And these are becoming common in the marketplace. But I also think that, again, it does distinguish the players in the market of who can do these type of projects. Because on the larger battery systems, the larger solar systems, when you start talking about what we refer to as MV tie-in, medium voltage, which is your 11 kV, that is a market where not everybody is capable of installing those systems. And I think that puts us in a good stand in that segment of the market, and definitely where we see the projects going forward. You would see a year ago, your inquiries coming in would be 1 out of 10 would ask for a battery. Now 10 out of 10 are asking for a price on a battery with the solar system.
And just for our auditors, if this is a question that they have at the back of their mind, can you install a battery on any type of operations? If I've got a factory, a shopping mall, any type of businesses?
Julien, good question. And I think that one just needs to be very careful. I think the short answer would be yes, you can install a battery anywhere. The longer answer would be make sure you've got the technical side of your system well designed. You get inductive loads. You get factories that have huge inductive loads. Others that are easy to install, less demanding environments. So these are the type of things that you need to know. You need to do proper data gathering.
Yes.
You can't just work off an electrical bill and say, you need a 500 kilowatt hour battery. It's not that simple. You need to make sure that you've got the right data, you're working with the right load profiles, and you understand what the load is and how it performs. For that, then you can go and design a proper battery system.
So the other day we were talking about the interval that is required to be able to understand the load of the client. Can you very briefly tell us what interval is suitable and what interval is not suitable for us to be able to understand the load of a client and respond within appropriate batteries? I think a lot of mistakes are made in that regard. I would like you, if you can, to enlighten us in that regard. What is the right interval, data interval, to have a look at sizing a battery properly?
So typically in the past, when we did a load profile for a solar system, we would be happy with 30-minute intervals of data to give us a load profile. When you come to batteries, that's totally inadequate.
That means looking at the consumption of the client every 30 minutes to know exactly
Correct.
what is being drawn. And now you're saying, how accurate must it be?
Now you want to get down to like a minute or less. Okay. You could the more data you have, the more you can get those peaks. So when you're looking at a load can have a peak that lasts a few seconds.
Yes.
And if you miss that, you don't know what the load is doing. And you're going to design a battery, put it in, and it's going to fail because it's not going to be able to handle those peaks. So the less you can get it, the better. But you typically would want to say nothing less than a 30-second to 1 minute data interval. You would want to draw on the load to see what the load is performing. But the better if you can get it down to 5-second intervals, that would be great.
Yeah, the more refined, the better.
The more refined, the better.
So I'd like to dive a little bit more into the batteries, because as you said today, 10 clients out of 10 are requesting batteries. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about the do's and don'ts. Not necessarily going too much in details, but if people are listening and they're wondering, yes, I want a battery, but I don't know who to trust and I don't know what is acceptable. And if there's any EPCs that are looking, that are watching the show, then maybe we can give them a couple tips about what is acceptable and what's not.
Sure.
I mean, we learned our lessons with earth mat and what needs to be done about containerized batteries. Can you touch on this a little bit more?
I one day, a long time ago, somebody made a comment and it stuck in the back of my head, and I think it's a very valid comment. He said that batteries don't die, they get murdered.
Yes.
And I think that is, there's never been a truer comment made in technology. I mean, I'm an engineer, and I know what he refers to when he says that. Because when you've got a battery needs to be treated very, very well. A battery is like a woman. You need to keep it very nice and cozy. You don't want to hammer it. The main thing about a battery is temperature. You don't want to let a battery get too hot or even too cold. 25 degrees C is where you want to keep a battery. So when you firstly start looking at a battery's design, you need to understand, how is the cooling system going to keep this battery cool? What does the packaging look like of the battery? Can I get proper ventilation through the battery? And how are we going to keep it at 25 degrees C? No point in me having an air conditioner there in the corner, and I've got a room full of batteries and my last little battery sitting in the corner and there's no ventilation around it. Ain't going to work. So your design is very important. I think we love doing containerized solutions in South Africa. All over the world, batteries are done in containerized systems. Containers typically get very hot, especially in our country where they stand in the sun all day. So it's very important that if you do a container, that you have proper insulation, you have proper ventilation and proper cooling to keep the battery at a very good temperature. So that is firstly and foremostly the important thing. Secondly is that you typically want to look for a battery where your management system is manage the more management you have of the battery, the better, because you can control it better, you can look after it better. So I typically say you want to do cell level monitoring.
Right.
You want to make sure that your battery is monitored at cell level. The advantage that you have also in cell level monitoring is that you've got redundancy.
Yes.
So if you've got a big battery, you have a problem on one of the cells,
It doesn't affect all the rack.
doesn't affect the whole rack. You can shut down that area and the rest of the battery can continue working. If you don't have cell level monitoring, one cell has a problem, the whole battery dies. So that is something to also take into consideration. Another very, very, very important factor is fire. We see more and more battery fires happening all over the world. I think there was recently an article about California that has a massive amount of batteries installed in California, and they've had something like 130 fires in 1 year.
Oh my God.
So this is something that you need to take very, very seriously. And it's not something that a client should now be scared of. And, don't.
Yeah, I was going to say,
don't
the
touch
technology
batteries.
is safe nonetheless. It just has to be done properly.
It has to be done properly. So you want to make sure that if you do purchase a battery, that you make sure that the supplier has done a proper fire suppression system and that it's a proven fire suppression system that can work with the battery to make sure that you don't have any problems. I think that's the main features. I also think that, one of the other features that people don't always look at is your number of cycles. So if you're buying a battery, you will have some guys saying, I can do 10,000 cycles, guys say 8,000 cycles, others are 4,000 cycles. Just make sure that you understand what they mean by that.
Yes.
And to what depth of discharge they're talking, and what are the limitations around that. Because that determines the lifespan of your battery.
Of course.
And no point in I can buy a battery for 10 Rand, but it's going to last me 10 days, and I've got another battery that costs me 20 Rand, but it's going to last me 20 days. Same price. Even though I think my 10 Rand battery was half the price, it isn't.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also very important for people to understand.
Okay. Well, thank you for those highlights. I think we've got one more question. In closing, we would love for you to share with us if there's young, passionate minds that are listening to us today and they want to get involved in the renewable energy space and specifically the solar space. Have you got any tips that you would like to give them regarding how to get involved?
I think that, it's definitely what you say is like we started off by saying is that there's a massive demand all over the world, not only in South Africa, all over the world. There's a massive demand for skilled people in this industry and people with experience that know what they're doing. So I don't think you can go wrong. If you're looking for a career and this is something that you think you would love to do, you can't go wrong. There's a definite scope of growing into this industry and just getting better and better. We've seen in our own teams, we've had guys come off the street working on the roof, installing panels with zero studying involved. And they've grown up in our teams. Eventually, they're team leaders. Eventually, they even got into the position where they're project managers. So, you can really grow in this industry. And then for the engineering and
I'd like to stop you on this. I think it's actually amazing that ACES has been able to create a social ladder for these guys and women to be able to enter and have a career path that they're not only being told you will be a builder for the foreseeable future and that you do provide that opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
It's not everywhere that you see that, so I think it deserves a second for highlighting that.
No, well, great, thanks. And I think that that's important. We have to be able to create that opportunity for people to come into this industry without having to go and study engineering or go and do a very expensive course. Because you must remember, we work in a country where the guy on the street doesn't have 10,000 or 12,000 Rand to go and pay for a very expensive diploma or course that he has to go and do. Yeah. So many of the guys have to come in and really start by carrying panels. Yeah. But if they are enthusiastic, if they have the right mindset, there is an opportunity for them to grow and to get into this industry and actually really know what they're doing at the end of the day. And I think that is what I can say to people out there if you're stuck out there, you don't have a job, you don't know what you want to do, consider this area, consider this sector. There's a massive need for people in this area. Come speak to us, come to the academy, go to other companies and get into it. It's a great industry to be in. The energy sector is going to be a great sector to be involved in for the next foreseeable future, all over Africa. You know, it's not only South Africa, but all over Africa. There's a massive demand and great opportunities.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Charl, for taking the time today. I feel like we've learned quite a bit in a short amount of space. So thank you so much for that. I think you mentioned before the show that it's going to be a crazy end of the year for you. So best of luck for that and for your journey ahead. Thank you so much for joining us today and for listening. This was Julien Verzier on Switched On with Charl Gous talking about ACES Africa. We look forward to having you again on our next episode. Go well. Cheers.
Goodbye.